Did you know that Scotland's last goal at a major tournament was scored by Craig Burley against Norway in 1998? Do you know that Scotland have been knocked out of 3 World Cup group stages consecutively on goal difference? And do you know that no team has reached the World Cup more times and failed to get out of the first round than Scotland? Scotland have played in 8 World Cups, and this year's edition of the Euros will be the 3rd that they've played in. In this video, I'll be taking you through some of Scotland's best and worst tournament moments, from when they've qualified and played against teams like Brazil and beaten teams like the Netherlands, to when, they've lost against Morocco and gone out on goal difference once again. Before we get into it, please do remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. There is so much content coming up that you're not going to want to miss out on. There is also still some merch available, which will be in the first link in the description box below. So yeah, if you do want to cop yourself some stuff and get a handwritten note from me as well, and maybe 1 or 2 extra surprises coming your way in the package that you buy, then do go down to the first link in the description box below and check all that stuff out. Right, let's get into it. So the earliest World Cup finals that Scotland ever qualified for were in 1950, but they didn't actually go to the tournament. The winners and runners-up of the now disbanded British Home Championships would qualify for the World Cup, or FIFA thought they would anyway. Despite coming second and thus qualifying, the SFA declined the Scotland team to take part because they hadn't won it outright. Yeah, nice one SFA, denying your nation the chance to play in the World Cup. Absolutely mad, but not unsurprising given the way the authorities run football up here sometimes. 4 years later and the same happened. Scotland did finish second in the British Home Championships and qualified for the World Cup again. And this time the SFA actually let them go. Way! However, despite the allowed squad size being 22, the SFA sent just 13 players. It's self-sabotage at this point from the SFA. First, the 1950 World Cup where they didn't let any players go, and now this. Despite the lack of players, numerous SFA members and their wives made the trip to Switzerland for the tournament. They'd lose to Austria, then to hold as Uruguay before getting sent packing. Scotland made it to consecutive World Cups by qualifying for the 58 edition in Sweden. Matt Busby was due to take the team to Sweden, but was recovering from his injuries suffered in the Munich air disaster. Scotland drew with Yugoslavia in their first game to get their first ever World Cup point. They followed this draw up with losses against Paraguay and France to crash out early once again. During the 1960s, Scotland were really strong and won numerous British Home Championships. It was a big competition back in the day and something that I would love to see brought back. Despite this, they failed to qualify for the 1962, 1966 and 1970 World Cups. The Euros also started in 1960. Scotland didn't even enter for the first 2 editions and wouldn't qualify for their first Euros until 1992. More on that later though, as we're about to step into the glory years. St Johnstone legend Willie Ormond guided Scotland to their first World Cup in 16 years by reaching the 1974 World Cup in West Germany. They went unbeaten in the tournament but got knocked out in the first round on goal difference. How unlucky. They beat Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo. They drew with Brazil and Yugoslavia but went out on goal difference, having not beaten Zaire by as many goals as the other teams. Legends like Billy Bremner, Sandy Jardine and King Kenny played in that tournament. And in 1978, Ali MacLeod led Scotland to their 2nd successive World Cup, this time in Argentina. They lost to Peru in the opening game, then drew to the World Cup debutants Iran. They had to beat Netherlands by 3 clear goals to advance. They went behind but came back to win 3-2, an impressive result to be honest, but it wasn't enough in the end, and the enemy of goal difference once again was the big enemy, and that is the reason that Scotland didn't progress. But losing to Peru and drawing against Iran, then beating Holland, that showed the potential Scotland had to beat the Netherlands, but it was those 2 early results that really let them down. Look at some of the players they had, like I mentioned, King Kenny, Billy Bremner, players like that in that era who, could have gone on and really done things for Scotland in a tournament, you imagine. But moving on. Anyway, Jock Stein took over and took Scotland to the 1982 World Cup in Spain. They started well by smashing New Zealand 5-2. They then lost to a team that they were becoming familiar with, or would become familiar with anyway, Brazil. That was littered with stars that year, their team, and it had the likes of Socrates and Zico. They drew 2-2 with the Soviet Union to get knocked out on goal difference for a 3rd successive World Cup. Scotland qualified for the 1986 World Cup, but in absolutely devastating circumstances. They needed just a point against Wales to secure a playoff spot against the Aussies to help them qualify for the '86 World Cup. Davy Cooper, the late Davy Cooper of course, scored a late penalty to make it 1-1, but due to the stress of the occasion, Jock Stein was taken ill on the sidelines. I have made a full video about Jock Stein before, so yeah, if you type in Jock Stein footy adventures, it should come straight up. But yeah, Jock Stein was taken on the sidelines that day, and he's died in the stadium shortly after, as yeah, one of Scotland's greatest ever managers, if not the best ever manager, died doing what he loved. Alex Ferguson was his assistant at the time, and yeah, was left distraught by what happened, of course. He himself took over and beat Australia in the playoffs and took Scotland to the Mexico World Cup for the finals. There was no goal difference to blame this time. Scotland drew with Uruguay and lost to Denmark and West Germany to be sent home packing at the first round once again. Italia 90 was Scotland's 5th successive World Cup. The group didn't look too daunting actually. Despite being drawn with Brazil, again, they also faced Costa Rica and Sweden. They lost their first game to Costa Rica, beat Sweden, then lost to Brazil to get knocked out in the first round once again. Again, like surely they could have beaten Costa Rica and gone through and done something in this World Cup. Now finally onto the Euros. Scotland weren't a part of the first 8 editions of the Euros until the 9th one in 1992 in Sweden, which they qualified for. Yes, in 1992 they qualified for the Swedish edition of the tournament, and while they did well against Germany and Holland, they did lose both of those opening games. They then beat a transitional Soviet side, as the Soviet Union was kind of falling to pieces at that time. They beat a transitional Soviet side in their 3rd game, but it wasn't enough and Scotland crashed out at the group stages again. Scotland then failed to qualify for the 1994 World Cup, but they did reach Euro 96, and we all know what happened there. Scotland were knocked out of this tournament not by points, not by goal difference, but by goals scored. And all these little near misses in tournaments, how far could Scotland have gone without them? Another near miss in Euro 96, and yeah, more heartbreak for Scotland, unfortunately. Moving on to 1998, their last tournament since the one that is coming up in, of course, 2021. Yeah, basically a whole generation of people have missed out on Scotland playing tournament football. Unbelievable to think, really, that there was a time where Scotland qualified for 5 successive World Cups, had a couple of Euros in their belt, and yeah, went all that time without even qualifying. Absolutely not qualifying for anything. Absolutely mad, especially when you look at some of the teams that have qualified for tournaments down the years. Oh, Scotland should have done a lot better in that period, but yeah, glad to see them back in the big time now. Scotland's opening game was against the old enemy in 1998, Brazil again. Despite scoring and taking it to 1-1 with about 15 minutes left, an own goal by Thomas Boyd secured a win for Brazil. Craig Burley scored Scotland's last goal at the tournament to this day by securing a 1-1 draw against Norway. Scotland then lost 3-0 against Morocco to crash out at the group stages once again. So yeah, there's some of Scotland's tournament history for you there. A little brief look. I haven't gone into too much depth about it. I just wanted to cover some of the years that Scotland have been involved in tournaments and how long they have now been without tournament football. Yeah, getting on for, 30 years, and just absolutely mad to think that they've been gone for so long, but great to have them back here now. What are your favourite Scotland tournament memories? What ones can you remember? Are you too young to even remember Scotland being in a tournament? Let me know in the comments section below. And this year, do also let me know in the comments below, can Scotland finally make it out of the group stages? I really hope they can. I hope that England, of course, win the group and Scotland come second or something like that. But look, I've made so many videos in Scotland. I absolutely love Scottish football. I respect it so much. I'm English, and I get a lot of comments from people thanking me for respecting Scottish football and being English, because yeah, you watch TalkSport and stuff like that and listen to those guys, and yeah, they look down on it quite a lot. The likes of Jamie O'Hara comparing Rangers and Celtic to Bournemouth and Fulham. Yeah, I think they're a bit unfair to it sometimes, but yeah, best of luck, Scottish fans. I really honestly wish you all the best, just except from when you play England, of course. Please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new. It'd be great to see you around here more often. I'll leave some videos around my head as ever, so you can keep watching my content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.